Good morning and welcome to the POPI-Portal training, module 7 of 7 for schools. It is not our final training for schools, Michelle, we just discussed that. It is just the final training that we're going to have on the POPI-Portal itself and the implementation of the POPI-Portal into your school, as well as the policies and procedures. Today we're going to take you through some practical steps.
Peter, this is actually so exciting because what we've been doing up until this point is we've been taking our clients through each of the different functions on the portal.
Yes.
Today we're going to go through the actual policies and how to implement those policies within your business. For me, it's a little bit about legislation, and I'm going to use an analogy, and I'm going to talk about the creeping road rage analysis in South Africa.
Okay.
So people that don't stop at red robots and kind of creep through them when they see that the traffic's all clear, or kind of yield through a stop street.
Yes.
And the policing of that.
Yes.
So it's a little bit about we've got the legislation, we've got POPI, we've created the policies, they exist, but now we have to implement those policies within our business. And then we have to police our organization to make sure that those policies that we've implemented are actually being abided to.
Michelle, just taking us back as well, you had an interview with Microsoft with Colin Erasmus, and he specifically stated that POPI is not a implementation on a day basis. So you can't just go and do it and say, okay, now we're compliant.
It's not a snapshot.
No,
you don't
it's not
just
a
do
snapshot.
it and then we move on.
It's continuous implementation.
Yeah.
You've got to move from A to Z. And the importance of that is obviously your people, processes, and technology. Now, going through the people, processes, and technology through your personal information impact assessment, now we're going to take you through the practical implementation of the policies and procedures to specifically talk to that implementation of those policies and procedures in a practical method.
And Peter, I believe you and Arbel from Bates Napi have created a framework for these policies and procedures, and that's what you're going to talk about today.
Correct.
Providing that framework and then understanding the implementation.
What we realized as well is just putting POPI policies and procedures on the site and telling clients, listen, you need to go and implement this, but they don't know which are the important policies and procedures.
They're all important, Peter.
They're all important. Let's say they're all important, but there are definitely policies and procedures as a school that you need to implement first. There's a matrix. So we're going to run you through the actual implementation guide today. That implementation guide we will put up on the actual portal system, most probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So please have a look out for that. It will be under the policies tab.
Okay, so I'm here to do the housekeeping and the facilitation of the questions and answers. So today, folks, if you want to log into your YouTube, you can then access the chat on the right-hand side, which will allow you to ask the questions. Please do ask the questions, and then I will facilitate with Peter that they get answered.
And interrupt me, hopefully.
Always interrupt you. I'll facilitate that they get answered. If the question is relevant to a policy that you're dealing with right then and there, I am going to address it with you right then and there.
Perfect.
And then if it's more general, we'll leave it to the last 15 minutes Q&A.
Thank you so much. And please remember also to like and subscribe the page for any new training that we're going to do. We spoke about it this morning, me and Michelle, but we are going to do sort of a pre-launch to POPI webinar with Arbel to take you through more of the practical steps and to see exactly where you are in the process, and perhaps just add some, let's call it, success to your POPI journey through that webinar.
Absolutely. Last thing on the housekeeping, we're going to do the feedback forms right at the end in the last 15 minutes. So I will post the link. Please do click on that link and then give us your feedback as to how you found the journey so far within the POPI portal and suggestions for what you need in the future. And of course, if we are looking a little blurry to you, there's a little cog down on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Click on the quality and change the settings to a minimum of 720p. Don't choose auto because sometimes it can drop those settings down. So if your maximum value is 720, then choose that 720p. Peter, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Excellent. Getting started with the training this morning, I'm just going to quickly take you once again through the POPI portal system. There is some new functionality that we have added that I just want to showcase to you this morning, as well as schools or possibly other organizations who are watching this morning that have just purchased the portal, I think it's always important to give a little bit of an overview of what the POPI portal consists of, the toolkits that you can go and utilize, as well as running through your own personal information impact assessment. So I'm going to take you through the left-hand tabs. I'm just going to showcase that. The first thing that I do just want to make sure is if you're logged into your POPI portal this morning, just to ensure that your system settings are correct. So if we go into your settings, you'll notice that I've already set up my POPI portal as a private school, the company size, the number of employees, as well as the number of parents. So go and have a look at the portal. These are the questions you get asked initially when you do access the portal, but please just ensure that it has been properly set up. Now, from the get-go, you are going to perform your own personal information impact assessment through the TPN POPI portal for schools. So to go and do so, you click on Impact Assessment and you click on Overview. And then you're going to run through the different functions as well as the sub-functions of your school to ensure that you're asking yourself all these POPI relatable questions and basically doing a gap analysis on your school of where you're capturing information, how much information you're capturing, what type of information you're capturing, and what type of security safeguards do you need to put in place to ensure your compliance with the Act. So as you'll notice, we've got all these different functions ranging from governance, finance, human resources, information technology, operations, legal, and then your sales and marketing. To access any of these functions, you just click on Review All Indicators, and then all your sub-functions are going to be indicated under this function of governance, ranging all the way from your board of directors right through to your parents association. So this is vitally important. You need to obviously go and answer specific questions on these different sub-functions for your full POPI compliance. Now, just to show you the system functionality once again that we have implemented, if I say, for example, go into my bursary committee, I'm not going to do a training today on this. However, I just want to show you what the system functionality can do for you. Say, for example, this is not applicable to the specific school. You can click on the not applicable button and click the yes button. That means that it is going to mask this specific sub-function so that you don't need to answer questions specifically on your bursary committee. So very important, if it's not applicable, you can go and mark it as not applicable. Also, I'm going to move my right leg a little bit, or left leg, sorry. You'll notice that we've got this little blue button right down at the bottom. If you go and click on this, you can directly go and add actions as well as your notes to the specific sub-function. So we've now allocated these, the actions as well as the notes to sub-functions, so you can link them to the specific sub-function that you are performing. So say, for example, the bursary committee, we're not going to mark this now as not applicable, but we need to add an action specifically to have a look at the documentation or the information that we're collecting in terms of the sub-function. You can go and add your action or your note directly there too, and it's going to update directly on your left-hand tab as well. So very simple, just new system development for you that you can go and utilize just to make your journey a little bit easier. But remember, you need to run all these through all these functions and sub-functions anyway. Good. Okay. Going into your action plans and notes, we discussed this in depth in all of the previous training sessions. Remember, they are available to you on YouTube, so if you've missed 1 to 6, you can go back and re-look at them. We have run through a lot of the system functionality, but also showing you how to answer these questions in terms of your personal information impact assessment. You can also now add meetings specifically to the portal to ensure that you're holding the specific POPI meetings that you need to hold. You can add them directly off the left-hand tab. Just click Add over there, and you can add exactly what meeting you need to hold. When you press the Start Recording button, any action or note that you make under the portal system will be automatically linked to the specific meeting, so you know which action or note links to the meeting itself. To set up staff, and this is vitally important because as you all know, you can now go and register your information officer through the information regulator through that website. We did send out communication about this, but you're more than welcome to contact us if you have not yet registered your information officer through the information regulator. We're putting up those details right now on the screen. It's helpdesk@tpn.co.za, and you're more than welcome also to use the legal email address, legal@tpn.co.za, or you can contact us on that contact number. Now, the importance of obviously adding staff is that you can allocate certain sub-functions or performing sub-functions to these staff, as well as assisting you with your online training register that I'm going to go through now. So please make sure you are adding the staff that needs to be added to the system, and even possibly adding your information officer, or if you do have deputy information officers, they can also be added through this specific platform. Now, on the training tab, should you need to perform training, which you obviously need to go and do, you need to provide staff awareness training as well as compliance training for all your staff. You can go and add them to your training session lists purely by clicking this add button right over there and making sure you click save. You can enter the training name, the description, sources, the level, whether it's of awareness or comprehensive, and the duration. Once that has been added, you can go into it by editing and select the number of staff members that have attended the training or still need to attend the training. So it's as simple as that. This is one of the functionalities that we've added new to the system that we have had a lot of feedback on, and people have said that they're utilizing this to make sure that they've got their online training registers available should they need to present them for an audit or show that they've given the staff awareness training or comprehensive training. We do also have a training register available as part of the policies documents, but I would suggest adding them in over here. It's just a lot simpler because now you've got an automated electronic system where you're saving your staff training registers. Now, heading into the policies and getting really into the nitty-gritty, the main part of the training today, you'll notice that we've uploaded a lot of different policies and procedures, and I'm going to stop here for a moment because this is where things start to get confusing. Which policies are the most important, or which policies are important for implementation into your business? Which are the ones that you need to look for first to implement, rather than going to implement something like a bring your own device policy? So I'm going to showcase today an implementation guide that we will upload, like me and Michelle said, either this afternoon or tomorrow, so that you can utilize this for your implementation of your POPI policies and procedures at your school. So one of the things that I've been asked about a lot lately, all of the legal team has, is a POPI Compliance manual. Now, that is a colloquial term everybody's using for all the policies and procedures that need to be implemented at the school. It's not as if you can just draw up a manual that's a couple of pages long and inherently then you're going to be able to be POPI compliant from the get-go. POPI Compliance, like we said, is an A to Z process. You need to run through all the policies and procedures and make sure that you're compiling and implementing these policies and procedures for your specific school. But also, it's not just a singular page or a couple of pages of a POPI compliance manual. I think this got a little bit thrown around because we're talking about PIA manuals as well today, which I am going to mention. But your POPI compliance manual is going to be all your policies and procedures that you are implementing. So all of these policies and procedures under this specific page of your policies page on your POPI portal needs to be implemented to fulfill your POPI compliance manual. So if we're going to use that term, remember it's a lot of policies and procedures that need to go into that term specifically. Also, for PIA compliance, remember that there are certain exemptions that have been granted, but they date exemptions, which means that your implementation of your PIA manual for your school needs to be implemented before a certain date. Now, as a school, in terms of the South African, SAHRC website, as well as the research that we've done, you're obviously falling underneath the community special and personal services threshold, which means that you need to implement your PIA manual if you've got more employees or falling above the threshold of 15 million. You need to go and implement your PIA manual before the implementation date of 30th of June, and you need to go and submit those directly to the SAHRC. Michelle, we've got a question. Yes.
Peter, the question is, what is the maximum number of employees? So you had a maximum
Yes.
threshold in terms of turnover and employees.
So it ranges, Michelle. So what I'm saying here is if you've got more than 50 employees or your threshold is more than 15 million. So it's or, it's not an and. So either or. So if you've got more than 50 employees or your threshold is more than 15 million. Does that make sense?
That's good. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay. Regardless of that, we are going to have a generic PIA manual available to you on the policies tab. You can go and download that and implement that if you do fall into that category that needs to implement PIA prior to that date of 30th of June. We obviously think this is vitally important. Those dates and those ranges might move a little bit out, but inherently you're most probably going to have to implement a PIA manual at some time. So we're going to make that available to you through the POPI system. Also, just take note, we are going to add around about 4 more policies to the policy tab that you can go and access. We'll upload those obviously before the implementation date, most probably in the next week or 2. Go and have a look out for those, but we will send out communication as soon as those have been loaded. So just to get back to what I just discussed, POPI manual versus PIA manual, we understand that those are 2 different things. Your POPI manual is going to incorporate a lot of these policies and procedures that we're going to discuss today. I'm not going to run through all of them. I'm going to take you through the implementation guide and obviously the policies and procedures that we believe you need to start looking at first and implementing first. So ranging from your acceptable usage policy right through your website terms and conditions and all your other documents. When do you as a school need to implement these and what do you need to implement first? So this is the document that we're going to upload later on today or tomorrow. Remember, we'll send out correspondence about this so that you know that there is an implementation guide. But what I'm going to take you through today is specifically the information privacy policy and framework, the information security policy, code of conduct, confidentiality of information and privacy clauses, handling and processing of requests from data subjects in relation to POPI, your information privacy agreement, user declarations, and obviously your training register. But like I said, that training register is available to you online through the POPI-Portal system. Now, what you'll notice is I've already started grouping these different policies and procedures underneath, let's call it a main policy and procedure. I have bolded the information privacy policy and framework as a result of this being a policy and procedure that covers both POPI as well as your GDPR. It includes your compliance frameworks that is a requirement in terms of regulation 4 and 5 that you need to go and implement. So it's a very important policy that also looks at how specifically information on data subjects and European citizens is allocated as well as handled at the school. One of the questions that we've also received quite a lot is GDPR and information on European citizens. Remember, it's very possible that people, your employees or parents could have dual citizenship. So GDPR as well as POPI is going to be equally relevant when it comes to implementation of this procedure itself. I've also frameworked 2 different, let's call them policies, underneath your information privacy policy. These are things you need to put out on your website. That's specifically your website privacy policy and terms and conditions. If you do have a website, please go and implement those. Make sure that they are allocated on that website for use by the person accessing that website itself. Then having a look at your information security policy. It is going to be the main overarching policy, but it is going to deal with the different policies and procedures that you also need to implement should they be applicable at your school. And this speaks to your acceptable usage policy, your access management and control policies and procedures, which also includes one of the other documents, which is a system access request form. So one of your users needs access to a specific part of your system. You can allocate use directly through that system access request form. Your backup and restoration policy and procedure, which we've talked quite a lot about as well in the first few modules. Your bring your own device policy. So if an employee or a user of the system is using their own device, you need to implement this policy, but also you can use a user request form so that you know what device is being used to access certain systems. clean desk and clear screen policies, your information incident management policy and procedure, information privacy policies and framework, your information transfer policy and procedure, information quality policies, your physical and environmental security policy and procedure, retention and destruction policies, and your vulnerability and penetration testing. Like I said, there's going to be 4 more that is going to be allocated. We are going to incorporate these into the implementation guide. But what I'm trying to show you over here is that there are certain policies and procedures that form part of the main framework of these other policies and procedures that might be the most important for you to implement from the start. And talking about that, we're talking about your information privacy policy and framework, as well as your information security policy, which I'm going to show you right now on the screen. Your code of conduct and the confidentiality of information on privacy clauses is specifically to be utilized for you when it comes to your code of conduct at the school. So it's important clauses that you need to encapsulate, perhaps even in your employment contracts, but also in your own code of conduct. Albel and I had a discussion yesterday about this. We said perhaps we should draft a code of conduct that needs to be implemented, but because schools and other businesses are so specific, we don't think it is viable to provide a generic version of this. As a result, all schools anyway have a specific code of conduct that they're implementing with the employees. So make sure that these clauses are inputted specifically in that code of conduct for your compliance. Handling and processing of requests from data subjects in relation to POPI, vitally important. If a party requests that information be provided to them on themselves from your system, you need to be able to provide that. There are documents available to you that is a data subject request form for a natural and a juristic person. Having a look at your information privacy agreement, which I am going to put up on screen as well. That is the contract between you and third parties or customers, where if you need to share personal information with those parties, say for example your DMS, or if you are a responsible party that's processing, but another third party is also processing that personal information that is stored on your systems, you need to sign an agreement between those to regulate the transfer of that data and how compliant that other party is in terms of POPI as well. So that's a vital one to go and do. And then there's a user declaration for organization policies, which I'm going to show you as well. Also a very important one for all users of your system, for all employees, and then your training register, like I said. But the first one I just want to allocate today and just show you how this works is your information privacy policy and framework in terms of both POPI and GDPR. Now you'll notice once we do go through this policy and procedure, they're incredibly easy to go and fill out. The majority of them don't need signatures, they need to be implemented in your business, or rather at the school. So you're going to fill out the organization name, the school's name, registration number, VAT registration number, physical address, and email addresses. Then in terms of the policy statement, we're talking a lot about what is POPI, what is the GDPR, and how it needs to be implemented specifically. So running through that, we're ranging from your policy statements, definitions used in terms of this policy. Purpose and scope of the policy is obviously to set out POPI policies and procedures for your implementation. And then, like I said right in the beginning, the importance of having a look at governance, people, processes, and technology. Remember, when you're doing your personal information impact assessment and performing your gap analysis, you're obviously talking to all governance, people, processes, and technology at the school. Also taking you through the legislative frameworks, whether that be POPI and the GDPR, and how this is implemented and how this impacts your business. Unfortunately, I don't have 4 hours to go through this with you today, so I'm running through it quite quick. But you're more than welcome once again, if I'm running through this too quickly, to email the help desk or the legal email address so that I can assist you with the implementation as well as the understanding of these policies and procedures. We're also talking, when it comes to this policy and procedure, of the rights and responsibilities of your information officer in terms of Regulation 4 and 5. So it's important, we've taken this directly from the Act. It is specifically to show what your information officer needs to implement and their responsibilities at the school and what needs to be done. Ranging through this, we're talking a lot about the different, the 7 pillars of information processing in terms of POPI, which remember is accountability, processing limitation, purpose specification, further processing limitations, information quality, openness, security safeguards, and data subject participation. So ranging from this, taken directly from the Act, what is accountability, what is your processing limitations, and it gives an example and explanations on all of these concepts and how you are going to implement this at the school. And then that brings us to the end of this policy and procedure. So remember, this is a main policy and procedure to be utilized, probably the first one that you need to go and have a look at and implement at the school. Like I said, please email us if you've got any questions on that as well. The next policy and procedure that I just want to showcase as well is your information security policy. Like I said, a lot of different policies and procedures that we've got on the policies tab fits directly into this policy and procedure. So it's vitally important that this one be the first one that you go and have a look at, and you implement all of those let's call them policies and procedures directly under your information security policy. So just having a look once again at that, very easy to go and fill out the schedule, your school's details. You can have a look at the objective and the scope, and specifically having a look at this policy and procedure. One of the things Abel told me to mention as well is that for information security policies and procedures, you need to have a certain standard that your security policy is at. In terms of ISO 27001, there is a different series on this, of course, but it speaks to you being ISO compliant and how the security policies and procedures at your school is going to be implemented to ensure that you've got the highest security safeguards that is implemented at the school. So it flows into all of these different policies and procedures. As you see, we've got this documents heading right over here. And once again, this specifically speaks to, but it flows into all of those other different policies and procedures like I showed you on your implementation guide, ranging right from your acceptable usage policy right through your vulnerability penetration and testing policy. So this is the main one that you're going to implement first, and then you're going to have a look at the other policies and procedures that fall underneath this documents tab. But remember, it is in that implementation guide. Go and have a look at those and implement them as sub policies and procedures for, let's call it, your POPI manual to be fully completed. So once again, just talking about your policies, the responsibilities, rights reserved by the organization, and draining through right through training and awareness, dissemination and review. So it's quite easy. These documents aren't very long. You can go and read them yourselves. But like I said, just having a look at the implementation guide, those are the ones that you are going to focus on. So we've done the information privacy policy and framework, talking about POPI and GDPR, and your information security policy and procedure. Once you've done those two, you can go and range through your acceptable usage policies, your physical environment security policies, and right through all these other different policies and procedures to ensure that you've got everything covered when it comes to your information security. Now, your code of conduct and the confidentiality of information and privacy clauses. This is just a document that we've created so that you can go and implement these different terms and conditions into your code of conduct itself. So ranging from your definitions of confidential information right through to POPI and third parties, and then making sure that this confidentiality of information is incorporated directly into your code of conduct or employment contracts. You'll notice if you are a lease pack or any one of those subscribers, it's very similar to what we've got in those contracts called the regulatory compliance clause, because it speaks to regulatory compliance and what you need to do as a school to ensure that the processing of personal information has been done correctly, as well as your employees being bound to the specific condition to ensure that POPI policies and procedures are implemented, to ensure that they're following certain steps when it comes to the processing of the personal information. So quite an easy document to go through. Going back to your implementation guide, your information privacy agreement, as well as handling and processing, we're going to deal with now. So your handling and processing speaks a lot to how you handle the information, but also if there is a request from a user or a third party to see certain information, to access information from your systems, this is how you're going to go about this. So this is an important policy and procedure to implement because, once again, from the initial start date or the effective date of POPI of 1st of July, should a party request that information be provided to them on themselves, you need to follow a certain procedure in terms of the Act and regulations. So this deals specifically with handling that information and how that information is passed through to that user or rather third party or the data subject. So talking about just the schedule, once again, easy to go and fill out, your introduction, objective, scope, as well as the different procedures. So you'll see formal request from the data subject, very important. Like I showed you on the implementation guide, you've got different other documents that also fit into this, including your system request forms, whereby a natural person or a juristic entity can request information directly from the school. So it just talks a little bit about that procedure and how to handle that. You can go and implement this, make sure that your processes match up to the actual POPI policies. Like Michelle said right at the beginning, you can have the most fantastic legislation, laws in the country, but if nobody follows those, specifically on the road, everybody's going to crash into each other. So this is an important one to deal with when it comes to your procedure for handling requests of information by specific data subjects, whether they be natural or juristic entities. So easy one to go through as well, a couple of pages long, easy to go and implement at your school as well. The last one that I just want to go and have a look at is this information privacy agreement. This is one of those that you're going to sign with a third party that you're sharing personal information with, to ensure that not just the transfer of that personal information is handled correctly, but also that that third party is POPI compliant and that they are ensuring that they are going to follow the right procedural steps when it comes to POPI implementation. So you go and fill out the organization details, the school's details, as well as the customer details, and then ranging through the agreement, going to skip over the definitions, they are quite long, as well as the interpretation clause, all very important clauses obviously, but at the end of the day, not important for today's session. Then we're talking about information processing principles, and once again, the 7 pillars of processing of personal information in terms of POPI is at the forefront over here, ranging from your accountability, purpose specifications, and it just says that this third party, this customer, in terms of this contract, is going to be compliant and is not going to share that personal information with parties that they're not authorized to share that information with, and that the transfer of that information is secure and being stored securely from their side as well. All your general provisions, your data subject participation, as well as your letters and notices, and they can then go and sign the contract with you to ensure that not just you, but that third party is also obviously POPI compliant when it comes to the transfer of that information. Like I said, this can be signed with your DMSs or any other third party that you are providing information to, or rather personal information to in terms of the Act. So to end off there, let's just give a quick overview of what we've done today and where you're going to start off when it comes to the implementation of your policies and procedures. This implementation guide is going to be available for you. I'm not just going to leave this with you on the screen. We'll put that under the policies tab so you can follow this as well. Your information privacy policy and framework, POPI and GDPR, incredibly important. First one that you're going to go and have a look at. Then your information security policies. And then once you've done that, you can go through all the different other policies and procedures that filter through underneath this information security policy. Your code of conduct, essential. Go and add those clauses into your code of conduct or employment agreements. Your handling and processing of requests, also one of those first ones you need to go and have a look at it and implement. Your information privacy agreements that you're going to sign with your third parties. Your user declaration of your organization policy, which is incredibly important for all your employees to go and sign. They can go and allocate that they've seen the certain policies and procedures and that they are bound then to. And then your training register, which is once again part and parcel of the POPI portal, so you can go and add in your training registers and make sure those are online. Michelle, that brings us to the end of our formal training session today. Are there any questions for me?
Peter, the one question that we've had
Yes.
is how do we go about getting the previous modules? So modules 1 to 6, where do we go and access those?
So very easy, go into YouTube. You're in YouTube already. Go and click on TPN Credit Bureau. Go and type that in the search box. Go and click on the TPN Credit Bureau YouTube channel. And from that, we've gone and allocated the POPI Portal policy for schools training, as well as the POPI Portal training for property underneath different playlists, and you can go and access module 1 to 6 as well as 7 that is going to be uploaded later today as well. So you can follow along with us. Like I said, in the previous modules, we do rather go through the POPI Portal system and your personal information impact assessment to ensure that you know how to answer those questions in terms of your processes, or rather functions and different sub-functions. So very simple, go and access the TPN YouTube channel and just go and click on through those playlists as you go along.
Peter, I did make a suggestion, and
Yes,
I
Michelle.
asked our delegates if they would appreciate, or if it would be useful to have a video on demand for each of the policies. And it was a unanimous, yes please. So I know what you will be doing for the rest of June as we do video on demands.
Perfect, I love that. And then we can actually run through each and every policy and procedure, because I know this time is very short with you. Just having an hour running through, 20 different policies is incredibly short. So that's a great idea. We'll actually do a video on the implementation guide as well to show you how to range through. We'll put that on a playlist for you on YouTube so that you can run through those as well. Great suggestion, Michelle.
And just to let our delegates know, the feedback form is now available. So please do fill the feedback form in so that we can submit your attendance certificates to you. Mary Ann Foster has asked, must we use your platform to submit school fees before we can access these policies?
Oh, interesting question. Okay, so 2 different complete concepts of TPN. The one obviously being the POPI Portal or rather the POPI Portal system. You can go and access that directly through the TPN shop. You can purchase this portal and you're going to have access to the portal itself along with all your policies and procedures for the price of 920 Rand excluding VAT. We're talking then to
including VAT.
Including that, yes, thank you. We're talking then about the TPN Credit Bureau system and how you get your information loaded, or how your parents are paid each and every single month loaded onto TPN. Please, if you're unsure of what that means, like I've just said it, please email data@tpn.co.za and they'll assist you with linking your data management system, or even perhaps doing it manually through the system itself. But that's a different part of TPN. Because you submit data does not necessarily give you access to the TPN POPI portal. You need to purchase that through the TPN shop. If you're submitting data, thank you very much. It's very, very easy to do through your different data management systems. But like I said, completely separate from what we've done today. And please, if you're unsure about that and you'd like to submit data, think it's very vital for you at this point in time as well to go and do so, just email data@tpn.co.za to get that data pushed through.
So just to summarize what you just said for
Yes.
Mary Ann, you can use those 2, POPI Portal and TPN Credit Bureau, absolutely separately. You don't need to be a member of one to access the other. You can use them independently of each other. Although, of course, we would like you to use both.
Of course, we'd like you to use both.
Nick has said this platform is incredible. Thank you very much for the service. We appreciate it. Thanks, Nick. Alvisha's asking, do we get CPD points for attending the webinars?
Michelle, you must just let me know if I'm correct on this. Usually we do get unverified CPD
Non-verified,
points,
that's exactly
non-verified
correct,
CPD
yes.
points for the training sessions. Remember, the feedback forms are incredibly important for those, so please go and fill those out. Otherwise, we don't know who has accessed this training for today. So please make sure to go and fill out the feedback forms that Michelle has just posted in the chat to get your unverified CPD points.
Wonderful. Thanks, Peter, and thanks for everyone for participating today. And I think we've come to the end. Peter, if you had any last final words for our delegates as we close off the session.
Just 2, Michelle. Just 1 point. Remember, POPI and implementation thereof is not just a day-to-day thing. It is not like you can purchase this portal today and be POPI compliant this afternoon. You need to work through this. It is a process. We're here to assist you. Please feel free to contact us. We always give out our contact numbers and email addresses so that you can do so. If you're unsure of what to do, please feel free to access that service and let us assist you and guide you through the implementation. And then secondly, remember to subscribe to the TPN YouTube channel, because if you do so and click the notifications bell, you'll be notified of any upcoming training that we do for schools, specifically the training that Michelle and Abel is going to do prior to implementation. ending off with that. Have a fantastic day further, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Peter.